This is a Shopify reporting dashboard, including revenue, sessions, conversion rate, your top channels, your best and worst products, and where checkout is leaking. All on a single screen stakeholders can read in about 10 seconds. And by the end of this video, you're going to build it from scratch with me in Google Data Studio. I build these for retail brands for a living, the kind of luxury names you would recognize, and I'm going to show you the real order I do it in. Not the order that looks good in tutorial, the order that actually works. And the most important part is the part that everyone rushes. The first 2 minutes where you connect the data. Data Studio is a beautiful tool, but it only ever reports what you feed it. A Shopify store is a complicated machine, and the data underneath of it is too. But if we make the connection right, and then do the steps in order, you walk away with a report you can actually defend in a meeting. Let me show you how. We're going to go to Google Data Studio, but the URL is now datastudio.google.com. It used to be Looker for a brief moment in time, but now we're back to the classics. You'll see that I'm in the pro version of Google Data Studio, but yours will look similar if you're on the free version. On the left-hand side here, we're going to click Create to start our first dashboard. So you'll see a couple quick areas here. If you want to pre-connect your data source, I'll show you how to retrieve this as we start to set up our dashboard, but we're just going to skip ahead and go into reports. Just like we said before, the most important part is connecting your data. You really have 3 different types of sources, and what other tutorials aren't going to tell you, there is no such thing as a Shopify connector. They haven't developed their own, but there are ways to get that data into your site. My personal opinion is for most things, including channel attribution reporting for revenue, it's going to be from Google Analytics, but that may not give you the product level reporting that you want for things like returns, sell-throughs, more detailed product revenue as it's reported from Shopify, because it is a little bit different than what Google does. And that information itself is going to be in one of these 3 connectors. So Google Analytics, Google Ads, they're all kind of a standard connector that is part of the tool. You'll have basically raw data. So that could be in the form of Google Sheets, that could be in a CSV format. And then the third is a third-party connector like a Supermetrics, or in our case, we're going to be using funnel.io. So when you're looking at this area, you can connect it per report when you start it, or you can just go into your pre-selected. I created a couple links to start off with so that we had an easier jumping off point here. So I'm going to go to my demo Shopify GA4. Again, this is just the GA4 connector you saw on the previous screen, or the demo Shopify funnel, which is our funnel.io connector. I'm going to start with the GA4 version and then just click add. When you get onto this page, if you want to add in more data sources, you're going to see a couple areas in the top here that you can use to control your dashboard. The resource panel is where you're going to be able to see all of your data, all of your joins, all of your filters. So if you're not able to see it in the chart that you're looking for, this is a quick way to look into them. So I'm going to click on manage data sources. And in here, I'm going to add another source, and I'm going to go to my drop down of that pre-configured version again. And I'm going to add in the funnel.io this time. So now in my resources, my added data sources, you'll see I have my demo Shopify and I have my demo funnel.io versions. And these will be accessible when we start building our reports. All of the other things up here, really you're going to only save for the final finishing touches of your report, especially the themes and layouts. If we have a more complicated report, we would add pages, but we're trying to get that 10-second review for an executive leader, so we don't want to overcomplicate this. You'll have a freeform layout or responsive layout. This really depends in what way that your executive team is going to be ingesting this. If they are fans of legal page printouts, you can make a format to print in a legal page. If they are going to look at this in part of a weekly presentation in like a PowerPoint or Google Slides, you can create a slide format so someone can take a screen grab and just put it directly into that presentation. Or if you're going to be giving a link out to them to look at in a ad hoc method, you're going to just choose freeform or responsive layout, because the responsive layout is then going to fit whatever device they choose to look at that link from. In this case, just to make it easy, we're going to go into responsive layout. That way we can have a more set standard for how we're going to be implementing this. It's also going to add in a couple key features for us to have the ability to make this a reusable self-service report as well. Now, you may be asking why we added multiple data sources to this report, and it really depends on the information we're trying to show our executive team. Google Analytics reports, in my opinion, are the best if we're trying to show channel reported data. data. If we're trying to see what the revenue contribution should be, depending on all of our marketing efforts, Google Analytics is the place to pull that information in. However, it might not match one-to-one to the actual revenue that Shopify is reporting. Shopify's information pulls in a different way, and it's not always a like for like because of how they look at their reporting windows for returns or exchanges or demand orders versus canceled orders. Shopify takes that all into account when it's giving you the reports on their side, but Google may not have all that information. So having a connector like funnel.io to be able to pick and choose what information is relevant is going to be super important. There's also some things that maybe neither of them have. If your data layer isn't set up in GA4 to give you image URLs and the Shopify report is maybe older or from another store that isn't currently active, you may want to pull in something like an image URL to really make your report shine. And you'll see a couple examples of why that could be really impactful as we start building this report. All right, let's start at the top, literally. We're just going to start a report by putting in our store name. We're just going to be really straightforward about this. It's a demo store. And then the next thing we're going to do is actually start building our first bit of information. So we're going to go up here and add in a scorecard. This scorecard defaults with whatever it likes for some reason, but we're going to go into the setup tab here and change it to more pertinent information for our team. So let's start with net profit. And then we're gonna make sure that this is actually showing up as a actual currency number. Our store's in US dollars, so we'll make sure that it's showing up as a dollar. Sometimes the metrics will show like that automatically, and sometimes they won't. It just depends on the data source and how well it's set up. The next one, we're going to go into net sale. Actually, these should probably be reverse, sale then profit. Then we're going to go into gross sales. Then we're gonna go into gross profit. Perfect. And then another one that I like to add in here just for executives to get a quick read so they don't have to bump around, we will go and we will add in returns. So now we have our net sales, our gross sales, and our returns all on our first top level scorecards. Another one that could be interesting, especially if you have the cost on your items in Shopify, are margins. So I like to do the gross profit margins. This just lets us know how much we're actually making on our product if we have the cost included on the product. This is a Shopify step. If you don't have it, it's okay. It's not necessary, but some executives like to make sure you're having above that typical margin rate. So we're just going to do a little bit more updating to these scorecards so that they're a little bit more informative to an executive. What we're going to do is add a comparison date range. So to do that, you'll click on the card, go into setup, and then scroll down to where it says comparison date range. Click on the toggle drop down here, and then we'll just set our range to previous period. This is then going to show if we are in a current month, it's going to show that same date range from the previous month, which would be the period. So we'll just go do that to all of these cards here. And sometimes if the UX gets a little bit buggy, because it tends to do that sometimes, just refresh your screen. It will then show you what you're expecting it to look like. Just a little bit of a pro tip being in here so often. That'll also help sometimes if there's a bit of a lag. So that can maybe get you out of a jam if something is being a little bit fiddly when you're trying to get something done. So now that we have all of these in here, you can start to see that this is becoming more informative to an executive. It's great that you had sales for this week or month. What was it compared to the previous period? You can also use this with a join. If you have sales data for goals, what that time period was, you could also pipe that in here, and that will help you have maybe a different view for the executives to build out your cards. If you've gotten to this part, you're probably finally ready to get out of your hand-managed Excel sheets that you've been running all your executive reports out of. And we're finally going to get into the bits of automated information with look-back windows, filters, concise data that every single person when they go to is going to have the same bit of information. Each of these panels that we're going to be referring to next are going to be that unlock for you. Now that we have our base executive information here, we're going to start building this out to show exactly where this revenue is coming from, the sources of of the traffic that are contributing to the revenue as a whole. I believe Google Analytics is the best place to do this. It's the most fair with their data-driven attribution model. We'll get into maybe how that works in a future video, but right now we're going to use that as a basis to add another layer to this report. We're going to first start by doing a little bit of organization. So up here, we're just going to add a title row and just call this base metrics. Make this a little bit bigger so that it looks like a title, and just resize the box here to make sure that it's going to fit. Just going to copy this again, and we're going to add our new row. This is going to be channel. There we go. And we're going to add in another chart. This time we're going to add in a nice heat map chart, and we're going to make it full width because there's going to be a lot of data in this one as we start to build it out. So the first thing that we're going to add into this chart, we're going to keep cost in there, but we're going to add in gross sales. That first. And actually that's already down here. Oh gosh, I'm skipping ahead here. So up here, we're going to add in traffic sources. Then we're going to add in paid and organic. If you're watching this video, you're probably running both of those programs, so you'll want to show both of these. You can put this in a filter later if you want to have one over the other, but we're just trying to show the breakdown here so it's a little bit easier. We're going to have our gross sales down here, and then we're going to do our cost. And then we're going to add a calculated field in here. This is where the executive ears are going to start to pick up, and they're going to start to really zero in on some of these interesting things you can do. We're going to put in our ROAS for gross. And this is a calculated field that we set up earlier in funnel.io. And it's now going to let us know what our gross sales over our cost are to show the performance on these channels. It looks a little bit spread out here. So I'm going to right click this, and I'm actually going to go into resize columns, and I'm going to set fit the data, and that'll just make it nice and even. So now you have this really nice chart that is showing traffic sources, Facebook, Google, other if it was paid or if it was organic traffic, your gross sales, your cost, and your ROAS. What you'll see in here is this is going to be distributed from the revenue contribution from Google Analytics, but the cost is going to be coming in from each of the individual data sources. So in this case, Google Ads is coming in for cost and Facebook is coming in for cost. And it's going to compare it against each other. If I put in the Facebook reported information here, Facebook's going to show a much different number, favoring itself over its contribution to other places. The last thing I like to add in here, and this is kind of another comparison feature. If you go into the comparison here, unlike the scorecards where it's going to show under, you can do a similar thing, and it's going to start to show you the deltas of that information on each of these columns. So now you're going to be able to see the delta in the gross sales, the delta in cost, and the delta in ROAS. So here is an interesting reporting insight where I'm looking at the gross, the cost being down, the sales being down, but our return on ad spend is almost 12 percentage points higher than it was in the previous period. So that may weigh itself out in the reporting overall, but it's just a way for you to be able to tell at a glance if things are changing positive or negatively. So we're gonna just clean this report up a tiny bit more. We're going to go into the actual chart here. We don't need a title on this because we put it above to make the sections a little bit cleaner. I also like in here to see channel total or row totals. So this is a good way for you to compare the two things together and individually. But also what I'm going to put in here is a little bit of a filter. I only really care if this is Google or Facebook right now. They're the comparisons I'm trying to make for my executive team. So in this filter, I'm just going to go to the filter section under setup, and I'm going to add a new filter. Create a filter, and we're going to call this Google and Facebook. Then include, we're going to go to traffic source. And we're going to say contains, or if you're familiar with regex, that might be a little bit easier. So we'll go in here and we'll say and Facebook or Google. multiple ways to add this filter. This is just one that I like. It's a little bit more adaptable. And then you'll see that the chart is really just going to filter in the two things that we're looking for. The total won't match up to the grand total up here anymore, but that's just because it's filtering down onto the page. So now we can see between Facebook and Google, they are contributing about $25,000 to the total overall. Now, this is going to be pretty common that information between your Google Analytics or your source system are going to mismatch, but this is a copyable table that is always going to have a reference back to the source information. And as you saw, if you have to show your work, if I remove filters or make this just the raw data source, it does ladder up to what the Shopify numbers are reporting, which is going to be important for when you or your finance team are trying to reconcile or prove out your data points to your executive team. So now that we have the overall stats, we have where that revenue is coming from, we want to know more about the product and how the product is being sold on the site. And we're going to do it in a way that is a little bit more intuitive than you're probably used to seeing in your reports. We're going to just copy this title again. We're going to do a top product report, and we're going to add in another chart. Just do a standard chart this time. And again, we're going to turn off that title. We don't really need it there. All right. So in here for the product, we're going to start adding in the basic information for a product. So I had some demo information here. So we're going to do first the product title. Then we're going to add in the product top category. And then we're going to add in the product subcategory. And then you see here on net sales, and we can also put in here returns. So we can see how many items are returned, and we can see that return amount. And we're going to do one additional thing here to make it a little bit better. Our sorting is by net sales, which is correct. We can put in a second sort. I like to do this by item returns. That way, if you need to ladder up to things, you can. And then the most important part here, we're going to limit this to our top 10, and we're going to add our product images. So this one takes a little bit of configuration. You're going to click on the pencil icon here. You're going to change from text to URL and from URL to image. We're going to right click our report again, and we're going to resize our columns to fit the data and then make this responsive chart. So these product tiles here are a little bit too big. It's making the rows a little small. So we'll just scooch them over a little. You'll see that the titles are maybe getting a little bit cut off too. An extra thing you can do to fit titles if they start overflowing a little bit, if you go into the edit here, you can always rename these to be something a little bit more dynamic. So for this, I don't want it to say product image. I could just put a space in there. For this one, I just want to put in title. This one, I want it to be category. And then this one here, I want it to be subcategory. And then hopefully do a little bit of resizing in here to fit everything how I like it. And all of the information is now going to be nice and visible. There is a little bit of incongruity between the images and the font size still. So just to pick these up a little bit, we can make the title card a little bit more. And then this we can bump up as well. And now you'll have a nice product level report for your executives ordered by the top seller. And just like in all the other reports, we can go into the setup of this one. We can go into our comparison range. We can set to previous period, and it will also show us if something has changed in the revenue numbers. This can get a little bit messy as you're seeing here, and you'll have to resize a little bit, but this is where your resize columns fit to data gets a little helpful. Sometimes it will cut off the titles because it's fitting the data inside and the pictures may be too large, or you can just do evenly, and this could be a better way to review your data. I think the evenly here is the best case scenario, and you could just keep playing with this to make it fit how you want. Reminder that this isn't a responsive row, so it's going to try to flex itself to fit with whatever device you're viewing it on. Now that we have our top performing product for our executive team, the next thing that they are going to want to look at is our conversion funnel. Roughly 7 out of 10 parts are abandoned, and understanding how that is affecting our conversion funnel during critical sale times is going to help us move on events or course correct when we need to quicker. So we're going to create an at a glance version of this chart. There are chart styles that are supposed to be a funnel that I don't really think work well. So I'm going to show you how to do this with a normal table. So we're going to add a table down here, and we're also going to copy our title so that we have that available for us. Pop this down here, call this the funnel. go into a report, and we're going to hide the title again. We don't need that there. And we're going to want to make this, we're going to change our source from the funnel.io version to our Google Analytics. This will have the best information for our funnel to do the calculations. In here, we're going to get rid of the event name, and we're just going to go into add to carts. We want to have begin checkout. We want our payment information. And finally, we want our purchases, or as in Google calls it, transactions. So we have all this information here. We'll just distribute evenly now. And we're going to want to calculate what our actual rate changes are between. What is our actual drop-off percentage? To do this, we're going to create a new calculated metric. So we're going to hit the plus and we're going to say add calculated field. And we're not going to really put anything too important in here. We can call it ATC over begin checkout or initiate. And then we're just going to type in the actual formula for the drop off. So we're going to take our previous step, which is add to carts, minus our begin checkouts, divided by our previous step. And then we're going to change our number to a percentage. And we're going to add that in the middle of these two. So that is our fall off there. And then we're going to start doing the same for the others. So we're going to add another calculated metric here. And this will be initiate over payment. So again, we'll do the previous step. So key event. Payment. Add payment info. And make sure we just put that parentheses and then divided by our previous step, key events, begin checkout. And we'll change our number to percent again. And last but not least, we're going to do one more. We're going to do our payment divided by purchase. So we'll do same thing, key event. Minus transactions divided by key events and payment info. And our number is going to be percent. So now you'll be able to see the drop off of each of those individual steps. And you'll see I did a oopsie here. This should actually be e-commerce purchases. Well, in this case, it's the value's not changing, but purchases are, our transactions are confirmed or not confirmed, purchases are. And then we'll just resize our columns to distribute evenly. And this will show us our drop off rate between each of these individual steps. And we will get a nice funnel view. So this is another really good way to understand your information. We'll just make it a little bit bigger so we can see this like on the ones above, but you'll see here that sometimes there are anomalies due to Shopify data. So payment and purchases here, the key payment events is lower than transactions, which shouldn't be possible, but there are in some cases because of how Shopify reports its information. So they only will do payment or added payment information if it's net new. So if you're Shop Pay or a Apple Pay or something and you skip over that step, it won't put it in here. These are just the people that actually put in their information. So this is where you can start looking at your funnel and deciding what actual information you want in here. Maybe just the key event of added payments is an important number to look at from a comparison, but because it throws off the numbers here, it might be better to have a begin checkout compared to final transactions as a next step. So you have a 3-step and add a begin and a purchase. So it really just depends on your business and where you're pulling the information. This is an example of how you might want to modify it because of the Shopify data. Now that you have your basic report set up for your executive team, there'll be questions that you get asked pretty regularly. So So think ahead to the future and put a couple devices in here that allow it to be a little bit more self-serve. So I'm going to scroll up into the products here and the product title. I'm actually going to add in a new control. I'm going to put in a drop-down list. And this drop-down list is going to be more of a filter for an executive to use. Make sure the data source is the same one of the chart that you want it to filter in. So funnel is correct in this case. And we're going to want to change this to the top product category. We'll go in here, we'll just rename it to be a little bit more easy to understand what it's doing. And if I click this drop down, you're going to start to see all of the categories that are available on here from a top category level. So if I'm an executive and I really only care about footwear, that will start to filter this column by just the footwear that was sold in Shopify for my top 10 product. Again, if we wanted to, we could make this a little bit more unique now that we are able to filter it, put a summary row in here. So now not only are we going to be able to filter by category, but the executives are going to see how much revenue that category made on this report. Go into here and we'll just unclick that. So now it is set up everywhere. This date range will follow the same report, just like this will down here. Conversely, instead of setting up a filter for Facebook and Google, we could have done just a channel in here and applied another filter. So this would be a filter that would do the whole report by traffic source, whereas this report is doing the product by category. So this will make it be a little bit more self-serve and help whoever you're presenting this report to maybe come back to you with less screenshots or less revisions. They can kind of choose their own date range and some filters of their own. Now that we have made this self-service for your executive team or whoever you're presenting this report to, we're still in the edit mode. Let's get this published out and see what it looks like for anyone who lands on the page. We're going to hit the view at the top right, and this is going to take you from the edit mode into the preview mode. This is how, when you share this report to everyone, they're going to be able to see it. And just looking at the report now, everything is aligned. You're seeing all of the points that your executive team will need to see, starting at the basic metrics that they can have at a glance of what the performance is and the comparison to the previous period. The channel revenue report, so they can actually see who is contributing the most from a ROAS standpoint or percent of your marketing spending cost. You're going to be able to see your top 10 products with ability to filter them by category if one of your merchandising team members maybe wants to see shoes instead of t-shirts in this metric as well. And then finally, the funnel, so you can start seeing metrics of where people are dropping off from your critical path of your add to cart, your initiate payment, initiate checkout, and your transactions. The best part is at the top of this, you can hit share. You can make this a public link unlisted. You can share this with individuals that you type in or groups in your organization if you're in G Suite. And the best part is this was not a conversation about a pretty chart or how all of these data studio reports can be beautifully branded to you. It's having confidence in the data that every single person that goes to this report is going to be able to pull the same information. They know it's going to come from the source system. It has a trail that you can follow the breadcrumbs to, the raw data, and it will always align to the same amounts. So this is going to then change your paradigm from is this information right? Where did you get these numbers? To hey, this is how we're going to improve our business and act on these numbers to make more sales and a better customer experience. So that is the whole executive report, built from a single blank page. Every panel I just made, you can rebuild in your own Shopify store this week. And trust me, it's already beating the spreadsheet you've been updating by hand. You watch me spend the first few minutes on the connection for a reason. The reports only tell the truth if the Shopify data feeding it is correct. And on most stores, it's not, and there's nothing on screen that's going to warn you. The events fire wrong, the match rates drop, the product feed is malformed, if you can't eyeball that from a chart. So if you want to know whether the data under your reporting can be trusted, that's the audit we do. We check the stack, we work with your dev team to fix what's off, and scope the framework so your reporting holds up to the people you answer to.